There's a cost to not building, and it's rarely obvious while it's accumulating. I didn't notice it at first. It didn't arrive as some dramatic crisis or breaking point. It showed up quietly. A constant sense of restlessness, irritation over things that shouldn't matter, anxiety without a clear reason attached to it. The kind where nothing is technically wrong, but nothing feels settled either. For a long time, I treated those feelings like problems to be managed. I looked for relief, something to take the edge off, something to distract me, something to calm me down, something to help me unwind. And it worked, briefly. Enough to get through the day, enough to convince myself it wasn't a big deal, but it kept coming back. What I eventually started to see was this. I wasn't anxious because life was too heavy. I was anxious because it wasn't heavy enough in the right way. Men aren't built to float for long periods of time. When there's no weight to carry, the mind starts inventing its own. Worries multiply. Small inconveniences feel personal. Energy has nowhere to go, so it turns inward and starts gnawing. I felt that firsthand. Periods where I technically had freedom. Less pressure, fewer demands, more time to myself. And yet I felt worse, not better. I kept thinking I needed rest. What I was missing was responsibility I actually respected, not obligations forced on me, chosen responsibility. Something that required effort over time. Something that would exist tomorrow, whether I felt like showing up or not. When that's missing, the days feel strangely empty, even when they're full. I think this is where a lot of men get stuck. They feel uneasy, so they look for comfort. They feel restless, so they look for stimulation. They feel anxious, so they assume something is wrong with their mindset. Very rarely do they ask a different question. Has something important gone unbuilt? Avoidance feels good in the short term. That's what makes it convincing. Saying, "not now," brings immediate relief. You postpone the discomfort. You buy yourself a sense of ease. And because nothing bad happens right away, it feels like the right choice. But the bill doesn't arrive immediately. It arrives years later, disguised as dissatisfaction, as a vague sense that you should be further along by now, as resentment toward people who seem more grounded, even if their lives look harder on paper. When men say they feel lost, what they often mean is unanchored. There's no structure demanding anything meaningful from them. No long-term effort they can point to and say, "That's mine, I'm building that." So the mind fills the gap with noise. You start overthinking conversations, obsessing over minor setbacks, chasing small dopamine hits just to feel something. And the more you do that, the harder it becomes to sit still and work on anything slow or demanding. That's not a motivation problem. It's a responsibility vacuum. I resisted that idea for a long time. Responsibility has been sold to us as a burden, something that restricts you, something that weighs you down. And yes, responsibility is heavy, but it's also stabilizing. Carrying weight gives direction to effort. It gives shape to your days. Without it, energy leaks out everywhere and nowhere. I saw this clearly when I compared two periods of my life. The times I felt most alive and the times I felt most comfortable. They weren't the same. The alive periods were harder, more demanding, less flexible. But they gave me something solid to push against. The comfortable periods were easier and strangely hollow. Not building doesn't look like laziness. It often looks like preparation, research, planning, waiting to feel more confident, more ready, more certain, telling yourself you'll commit once conditions improve. But conditions rarely improve on their own. What changes things is choosing something that requires consistency, regardless of mood. Something that asks something from you even on days you'd rather disappear into distraction. That's when the anxiety starts to quiet, not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes clearer. I'm still learning this. I still catch myself choosing comfort when I'm tired. Still telling myself I deserve a break. Sometimes that's true. Often, it's just avoidance wearing a reasonable mask. The difference now is that I recognize the trade-off. Every time I choose not to build, I'm not choosing nothing. I'm choosing to pay later, with restlessness, with dull frustration, with the sense that time is passing, and I'm not fully inside it. Building doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be real. Something that grows slowly under your care. Something that would fall apart if you stopped showing up. That kind of responsibility doesn't crush a man. It steadies him. And once you feel that steadiness, even briefly, it becomes hard to unsee the cost of living without it. If this resonated with you, consider this channel a space for your own reconstruction, a brotherhood of men moving towards direction. It would be an honor to have you part of it.